South China Morning Post, 2nd of March 2024, China bets its charm offensive will deceive and alienate Europe from the United States. As part of its divide and rule strategy, China seeks to prevent the United States and Europe from uniting against a belligerent China. Amidst numerous sources of global conflict, one bright point appears to exist. Since the November 2023 meeting between U.S. President Joe Biden and President Xi Jinping at the Apec summit, the deteriorating trajectory of U.S.-China relations has been significantly mitigated. Despite this, Beijing appears sure that positive relations with the United States can no longer be sustained below a superficial level of interaction. In accordance with its global security initiative, Beijing now perceives itself as a stabilizing and security force in a world that no longer requires the United States and democratic nations. In an increasingly polarized world, relations with the European Union and its 27 member states are vital for China in its pursuit of global partners. Furthermore, it partially explains why the international community observes a Chinese charm offensive aimed at Europe's character. Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited France and Spain in addition to attending the Munich Security Conference, where he met with European leaders and foreign ministers. Wang, despite the conference's annual report introduction occurring within the framework of lose-lose dynamics, was resolute in his intention to transform his conference attendance into a win-win circumstance. Wang emphasized that China aspires to be a staunch force for stability on the international stage, notwithstanding its support for Russia during the latter's invasion of Ukraine, the ineffectiveness of its 12-point peace proposal, and Beijing's inaction during the Red Sea crisis. Significantly, he emphasized the future of cooperation between the European Union and China, remarking that Europe and China are the two preeminent markets and civilizations in the world. Wang emphasized the critical nature of Europe and the United States re-establishing strong transatlantic relations under the Biden administration. He stated that it is crucial that Europe and China remain free from geopolitical and ideological diversionaries, recognize each other as partners rather than adversaries, and collaborate to infuse constructive momentum into an unstable world and illuminate a path towards collectively surmounting challenges. The prevailing concern was Donald Trump's possible reappearance following the November election in the United States. A significant shift in Washington's foreign policy could inspire Europe to pursue a more autonomous global strategy to China's advantage. Beijing seems to be making preparations for the eventual achievement of strategic autonomy for Europe, a concept that has been long supported by France's remaining Gaullist foreign policy inclinations. Following that, Wang met with several European policymakers, including Aleksandar Vučić, the President of Serbia, Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, Dmytro Kuleba, the Foreign Minister of Ukraine, and Radosław Sikorski, the Foreign Minister of Poland. Each meeting concluded with a message from China emphasizing the necessity for both parties to strengthen bilateral development and cooperation for the greater good. The meticulously planned meeting agenda that Wang presented at the Munich conference served as an indication that China had re-established Europe as a focal point of its foreign policy agenda. Wang, despite the concurrent convening of the group of 20 foreign ministers, elected to attend the European meetings and instead dispatched Vice Minister Ma Xiaoqiu to Brazil. In the wake of China's stringent zero-COVID pandemic policy, the country has intensified its endeavors to participate in significant international forums and serve as a global symbol of reopened business. Wang then planned a brief visit to Madrid, where he was to meet with King Felipe VI of Spain, Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez, and Foreign Minister José Manuel Albares. In exchange for fair, just, and non-discriminatory business relations, Beijing lifted its 24-year embargo on Spanish cattle imports. Wang concluded his tour of Europe with a meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron and other high-ranking officials in Paris. Unsurprisingly, the discourse encompassed the advancement of free and equitable trade and the reinforcement of strategic coordination. Wang advocated for a constructive and independent role for the European Union and Paris in international affairs. In contrast, Macron advised China to exert pressure on Russia to return to the negotiating table with a credible offer to end the Ukraine conflict. The countries that Wang visited rank among the most active diplomatic entities in the European Union. Recently, they have adopted a comparable approach by devising novel strategies for China and committing to de-risking. It is improbable that Germany and France would abandon their long-standing ally in favor of China after a potentially isolationist second Trump administration, despite Beijing's hopes to the contrary. To confer with Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, Public Security Minister Wang Zhohuang traveled to Budapest while the foreign minister was occupied in Western Europe. He also conferred with Sándor Pinter, the Hungarian Minister of the Interior, to finalize agreements regarding security and law enforcement cooperation. Beijing may perceive this as a tentatively fruitful initial stride towards establishing more robust relations with European nations. However, Hungary stands out among EU member states and has recently allied itself with autocratic regimes. Following the foreign minister's European travel, European and Chinese officials convened in Brussels to deliberate on potential areas of collaboration, including critical minerals and automobiles. However, the future of Sino-European relations remains uncertain, particularly in light of the European Union's blacklisting of Chinese companies for assisting Russia during its invasion of Ukraine. Irrespective of the United States' continued reliability as an ally, Europe is confronted with positioning itself for the upcoming months. Uncertain is whether China's charm offensive has succeeded in reversing Europe's expanding effort to de-risk relations and turning the tide in China's favor.